Welcome to the meta. This is season 43, transitioning into 44. Um, Welcome back, I guess. I wonder how many new first-time listeners there are here. If you're one of those people, welcome. Listeners or watchers, I guess. This is on YouTube and on podcasts. So, what is the show? This is basically looking at not a snapshot like my daily sort of things are, but more of like from an overall point in time for the last season and the upcoming season, where we are, looking at where it's going in the future, sort of a brief review of what's happened, although that is much less now that I do so many of the sort of every couple of days short meta moments. This is trying to more look at the big picture of the overall meta and not quite as much focusing on datacrons because I now do like every couple of weeks or every week sort of GAC. I do a datacron review. What's popular in the meta, what's useful, what's unexpected, etc., etc. So this is more like the overall meta of GAC territory wars, what's affecting it, what to prepare for. Anyway, let's dig into it, and specifically focused on the competitive side. This is not just what you can do if you want to win, but more if you want to be constantly winning or consistently winning. Of any league, not just Kyber 1, obviously. So also we're watching in the background JJ's production. He plays a couple of accounts, 3 accounts maybe. I know he plays 2 for sure, mostly on Twitch. This one is in, I think, Kyber 3, using Bit Dynasty's planning tool, pretty handy. Anyway, this account's in Kyber 3, and it's a great way to get a perspective on some teams and such that are not using datacrons and good across a variety of different datacron seasons, which is rare for me. So, who am I? Why should you care what I have to say? So I'm a 12 and a half, I guess, million-ish player. Play in the top 100, top 50, top 10, top 20, just depends on my spare time and my luck and my attention to the game, and my opponents, obviously. More importantly, I watch an enormous amount of GAC content on YouTube and on Twitch, primarily for Grinder into Science. Although this last season, it's coming true, my dream here. I mentioned a few months ago we introduced a tool where if you go to counters, grinderinascience.com/counters, or you click on counters at Grinder into Science, there's a little button you can click on for people to submit their own or other people's counters that they've seen. They want to have them featured on the tool. Well, last month it was crazy. I think we had, in the first week alone, we had over 50 different counters submitted, which is pretty awesome. I mean, normally we have like 50 a season. Not that we accept them all. Some of them are repeats of stuff we already have, or they're in the queue to get approved. Some I just don't feel like they're good examples of that fight, or somebody else doesn't feel they're good examples of the fight. But the majority usually are approved if they're not duplicates. So it was awesome to see so many just in the first week. We didn't have that many continually for the rest of the time, but I'm hoping that sort of amount continues because that's awesome. It's a great way to get new fights listed. So I break this up into 4 different areas: 3v3, 5v5, ships, and overall game state. It's broken up that way because each of the metas are very different and they're only really changing once a month. I mean, this month there'll be more changes because we have Malicos and Leia, as well as the new marquee characters from the last couple of seasons that are now more played. But I mean, in terms of the datacrons, because datacrons are really sort of what the meta is focused around, and each 3v3 season and 5v5 season only exists once with that combination of those 2 datacrons. So, what happened in the last 3v3 season? So I am going to go and talk a little bit less about this last 3v3 season. I'm having a beer, Delirium Tremens. Probably my favorite beer of all time. I love the Belgian beers. Anyway, I won't talk as much about the past season because I've been covering it the last couple of seasons. I've been covering the season that just went by every couple of days. So if you're interested in what's going on, just listen to the little short 10-minute podcast every couple of days. I will mention a few highlights though, some things that are I think important for the next 3v3 season potentially. Yeah, it's hard to say though, because who knows what the Datacron set will be. The next one, I mean, 11. Um, but definitely for the set 10 Datacrons that were very interesting in this past season. Tarfool, amazing. I would say now especially with set 10 and with more and more people using GAC Insight, the majority of the teams are easily beaten by a multitude, by a number, 2 to 5 other teams. So most GAC matches, in 3v3 especially, most GAC matches are determined by people who don't check or don't scroll far enough down in the list, or they put the teams that are best on offense, they put them on defense. I mean, in the end, or potentially they use those teams against their opponent's front wall and they weren't able to have them available in the back wall. That's where the strategy really comes into play. But frankly, that's less. I saw that quite a bit less. It's very hard to stop somebody from having the teams available. It's more, what do they put on defense? That's sort of, as an offensive player, that's music to my ears, because I always, not always, I didn't clear, I think, once this last season, but the vast majority of the time, that was because of my mistake. I messed up like 3 fights in a row. Terrible play and good defense too. But in general, it's not very hard to have teams available to full clear. It just depends on how much you want to try and make it difficult for your opponent. So, and of course, roster imbalances at different roster levels. So, there's lots of irregularities there. But the main thing is, if you want, you can have enough to full clear in most situations. Yeah, so Tarfool was great. Ray was pretty good. Surprisingly, not even necessarily with the set 9. That's why I mentioned it here. But with set 10, with Speed Up and Dispel or the Dispel on the level 3, 10% chance to dispel, or 25% chance to dispel, sorry. Both quite good. The Speed Up is really quite powerful in 3v3. It's 25% speed, but even with 3 characters, that's a huge advantage over your opponent. It really throws many counters off quite a bit. Tuscans were really with set 9, so I don't think we'll see that again. Lord Vader, mostly with set 9 because of Maul, additional health he got, more damage that he got. But even Lord Vader with set 10 with armor penetration, quite good. And I mean, yeah, he doesn't really have any 100% counters with more than 20 or 30 attempts. He has quite a few high percentage counters, but those are the banners too. I mean, yes, if you put Lord Vader, Maul, and Rollguard, then you can kill out with all this stuff. That's not going to change no matter what Datacron set there is. Maybe with a repeat of set 4 with the cooldown, but we'll see. So. In set 5 or in the 5v5 season, anything to take away from the 3v3 season to use in 5v5 season? I would say, yeah, set 9, of course, would be powerful. Although since set 10 is mostly the offensive set 9 is relatively less powerful. And set 9 is old now. You have an entire season of 5v5 with set 9 to base your assumptions off of. So, I mean, it's going to be it's the best on defense compared to the 2 sets. But it's a little played out, I think, which is normal for the second season of a particular set. Jedi Cal is amazing. Lots of variety for the whole Jedi faction. There's interesting ways to split up your Jedi now. I'll go on to 5v5 here. Oh yeah, the one thing, and I'll talk about this bit at the end, I cannot overstate how important it is. The datacron changes they made for acquisition. Not even talking about the rank 1, rank 3, rank 5 for usage, but for acquisition, having the shard shop currency or the shard shop store, being able to use the shard shop currency to buy datacron materials totally changed competitive play in the game. I can't overstate it enough. Like, it's incredibly impactful. It's insane. Yeah, and the set 10, again, like I said, it's not really so impactful in 3v3. It's really a 5v5 datacron set. So I think we'll see a lot more interesting encounters and fights and stuff, especially with all the stacking in 5v5. Oh yeah, Wookiees. I made a note to myself. I think we'll see this quite a bit in 5v5. Maybe not as much as in 3v3 because you could spread your Wookiees more broadly, but still most people didn't have a ton of datacrons for just Wookiees in 3v3, so I think we'll see more of them in 5v5, even if they're in fewer like overall teams. What a great like Swiss Army knife style. You can use the Wookiees in a lot of teams and really change a counter significantly, which is pretty cool. So let's go on to 5v5 here. Yeah, I say we start the real fun, but it's not going to last. That's because I'm recording this, 12 hours or so after they announced the Leia kit. So it's likely that Leia will be released this week, I expect. Of course, you'll have to spend if you want to unlock her. Big surprise. I mean, maybe she'll be released next week, but I think this week. Probably 2 days. 2 days, I would imagine. But even putting Leia aside, because you'll have to unlock her and new ticket and currency and whatever. So I'll talk about Leia closer to the end. But Malicos will be coming right like 12 hours or something. No, 12 hours, 24 hours, I think, before week 2 begins. And Malicos for sure. I mean, he has 3 GAC Omicrons. So he's going to have a huge impact in week 2. And because of Malicos, he's going to throw off a lot of the other counters or teams that are affected by his abilities. Do I know exactly what that is? No. To be honest, I've read his kit a lot and I have a lot of theories, but so many people are thinking like Malicos is going to go into Lord Vader. I completely disagree. I mean, if you have Lord Vader Maul and you have Seer with the Omicron, I don't know why you would put Malicos and Lord Vader, but if those two things aren't true, then yeah, maybe. Certainly I see the potential. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there's no question that he's going to change at least, I would guess, 3 to 5 teams in terms of what you place or what you pull away to make sure you have to fight something else. And then just as people get comfortable with him, like close to the end of the 5v5 season, certainly I would imagine a number of players, a few players will have Leia no ult by the beginning of week 2, and a lot more by the beginning of week 3. And maybe some players will have her with ult by the beginning of week 3. Maybe some, I don't know, it's a lot of energy to use. And I don't know how the whole new system works, the new unlock currency, unlock token. So, what is the overall flow though in season 10? Really offense. We have 3 stacking teams. 2 of them are unlimited stacking, Phoenix and Clones. And with Clones, you can have 2 teams with unlimited stacking. By unlimited, I mean there's no cap. It's not like, plus 200% maximum. Sort of like the Wookiees with their defense are, or the Jedis, the Jedis with their foresight and gaining offense. So technically, there's 3 teams. One Phoenix and 2 Clones, and then 2 others with stacking as well. And then the Jedi have, even though they're not like stacking unlimited, how many Jedi teams can you make? at the very least, you can make two. Minimum, minimum, minimum. And then sort of like half. You have Jedi Master Kenobi and some Jedi in that team. Maybe Anakin is more likely to be in there now. Even Ahsoka, just regular Ahsoka Tano, is going to be doing a lot more damage, and she assists all the time, so it's very valuable. So that's two more teams, So you have a huge amount of very powerful offensive teams. And frankly, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some tech choices, and you see some stuff in Territory Wars to try and stop a team here and there. But even in Territory Wars, it's very, very less about like putting a team that will stop Phoenix, for instance, or stop whatever. It's more about before your opponent gets to those teams, you put something in front that tries to take away other options they have to beat those teams. So, I mean, this is not a new strat. I'm not trying to pretend this is something new. I'm just saying, right now in 5v5 TW, it has never been easier to have a variety of very powerful teams for offense. Very, very powerful. So I think even more than, or maybe, you know what? Maybe 5v5 will match 3v3 a little bit in terms of the style of play, where it's much more valuable to one shot rather than one shot with dirty banners, Instead of getting 55, you get 57 or something like that. Better to do that than to two shot for 41 banners or whatever the case may be. Because there are so many offensive teams. Even if you put a boatload of teams on defense, I mean, if your opponent does the same, then yes, you can have a knockdown, drag out type of fight. And some players like that. But I think in general, you stand a much better chance making your actual playtime less. Do you want to fight, 20, 23 battles, or do you want to fight 14 battles? One is going to take a lot less time than the other. And ultimately, I think for many players, it's more fun to win fights the first time rather than try twice 10 times. Everybody's different, of course, but certainly I'm going for, with all these offensive options, I'm really going for something that gives me the most amount of chance to one shot as much as possible. And for the, let's continue the video here. I have to pause for a moment. So what is important for those various stacking teams? Armor penetration is extremely valuable. That is definitely like one of the best stats to have for sure. The various level 6s they give stacking are critical, of course. And then knowing what the boundary is for the relic levels. For instance, made an example here, Phoenix versus Lord Vader. I mean, Phoenix can beat Lord Vader, but if your whole team is Relic 3 and you have a couple of Relic 5s, no, you're not going to beat a Relic 8, Relic 9, even Relic 7 to Relic 9 Lord Vader team. Unless it's a terrible Lord Vader team. But that is the most important part, I think, for people to realize that stacking is great, but you have to still use it against the appropriate team. And that's going to be a lot of week one, like everything else. People will try teams that they've never tried before, or probably have not tried before. Lord Vader maybe is a bad example because it's very easy to try him in Territory Wars or even Arena, So maybe not the best. And even then, it works without Captain Rex's Omicron, which most people or many people have in GAC. So that's going to be an interesting beginning, but stack penetration, your job will be a lot easier. Another one, clones with Cody or GACs. 501st, 501st clones. In set 9, it's sort of hard to give up gas, but with Cody lead, you have depending on your opponent, an unlimited infinite turn. Unlimited damage, infinite turn. turn meter loop. But you have to be able to crit against your target. And Cody needs to take a turn. You know, Shaq may be in there to give a, certainly not infinite like Cody. You need Cody's level 9 also for set 10. But still, both really good. Tarful is going to be great. The Wookiees, I think there'll be an easy counter to him. But I don't know. I mean, still, he's going to be a great team. There's not an easy team at all. 3v3. But I think the one-off Wookiees are going to be a little more challenging. You know, having 2 Wookiees in CLS team, maybe Vandor Chewie in Dash team, veteran Chewie in Ray, veteran Chewie and Vandor Chewie in Ray teams. There's some really interesting setups there that throw off a lot of the known counters or force basically non-star killer counters. And Malicos, who knows what's going to happen with him too. That's going to be very, very interesting. So all in all, 5v5, offensive heavy, a lot of changes later on in the season when Malicos is introduced, and then probably not that many changes due to Leia. I think most players won't have her except at the higher end or if they spend money. Well, there's going to be plenty who do, but still not a problem for the large majority of the player base. Ships, nothing changed from last month. They haven't made any changes to Leviathan. I really thought they would by now. It's possible they do in the next day or two when they release Leia. But I don't know if it would be retroactive in GAC or it'd only be affecting the next week of GAC. You know, it wouldn't be affecting the existing locked rosters. I really don't know. I would hope it would be affecting everything, but it's sort of unfortunate for people who like race through their GAC and do the ships earlier. Hard to say. I do hope they finalize the changes one way or another. I really have nothing else to say for ships, to be honest, because there hasn't been any real changes. I'd be repeating myself in previous things. I think it's a fascinating ship meta, but nothing particularly new, so I won't waste any of our time. Please feel free, by the way, to read it if you'd like. I'm slowing down a little bit. You can pause, read that, pause, read that, pause, read that. Okay. Let's go now to the overall game state, which I think is fascinating. If you've listened to this before or watched this before, you know I've been talking for the last few months about like a reset of the meta or the reset of the game, which I think is virtually done, where they completely changed the financial systems, the acquisition of gear and relics and everything like that, like where it's challenging, where it wasn't challenging, how long it takes players to get to the end game, how long it takes them to acquire GLs, the flexibility they have in choosing what they want, where various currencies come from, how long it takes to unlock characters, all of that. I mean, effectively, even, and from like my biggest interest, because I'm certainly at the very, very end game, so the acquisition of characters is not that relevant to me, but for me, like the balance of characters between each other in GAC or in PvP modes. GAC for me is the most interesting. TW is also, well, I find very little interest in TW, so it's primarily GAC. But all of that's sort of been reset, and I think with Leia, it'll be the end of that process. Like I don't see much else they could do besides updating the PvP modes a little bit or announcing some new focus. And I think the Leia kit is part of why I believe that reset is finished. Like they said very clearly in the introduction, the kit introduction, whatever, that she's meant to be an offensive GL. I think she's going to be quite good on defense. But if you just look at her kit, again, this is just my speculation upon reading her kit. It looks like Jedi Master Luke and Jedi Knight Cal will crush her or smush her very well. At least until I suspect the next Datacron set 11 will have some rebel specific stuff that will make her great. So probably they won't beat her very easily with that, but still, especially now there's Jedi Kron, and the abilities in there are not really affected by her kit so much. And the way that the Jedi Master Luke and Jedi Cal team work won't be super effective as well. They have resurrection, they have insta kill, they have um, high damage that is not days based. It's based on the protection of Jedi Master Luke. I don't think it's a health reduction that Leia provides, not protection reduction. So it shouldn't really change throughout the course of the battle. So anyway, I think Jedi Master Luke will kill her. I think Lord Vader will probably kill her as well. Maybe not as easily because cooldown reduction isn't there, but still, I think he can do a okay job. And many players have those two GLs, so I think she'll definitely be killable. And AI is probably going to be stupid. We'll see how it goes though. So she's going to be an offensive GL, great. But here's my biggest question: like, what is she going to kill on offense that you have a difficult time killing already? I mean, really, that's the question for me. With Jedi Knight Cal, Lord Vader is very easily beatable. So what are the teams? With Jabba? I mean, you can use SLKR or JMK versus Jabba. Both have very high success rates. You can use Night Sisters versus Jabba. That's a bit more iffy there, and that's going to go away after Set 9 is gone. So what are the teams? I really think she's going to go on defense. I mean, maybe you have Malicos. That's going to be the biggest problem on defense. I mean, not even a GL. He could be a big problem on defense. I don't know. This is what I'm most curious about. If Leia is an offensive GL, great. But offensive against what? Like, what do we have problems killing? That's really my biggest question. It's sort of like in a way like Leviathan. Like he's great on offense, but what do you need to kill on offense that you don't already have a team to kill, multiple teams to kill? So it's better to put him on defense because you sort of force one counter. And that way, I think Leia, she has a lot in her kit that, unless you use some specific stuff, I don't think there'll be that much cheese available for her. Just all the regeneration she has, durability and damage. I mean, yeah, AI is going to make bad choices, but still, you're going to get a huge amount of damage. Assists, health reduction. I mean, turn meter, stopping turn meter. She does a lot of cool stuff. So I think she's going to go on defense, even if she's meant as an offensive GL, just because there's no strong, really challenging defensive teams that exist currently. At GL level, at least. I mean, there's some great defensive teams, but most of the really good ones are not GLs. Again, not that GLs aren't good, but most of the really good teams that cause people problems are not GLs. You can use GLs against them. But yeah, again, it goes back to why I think this is such an offensive meta. Where the most important thing you do is choosing the appropriate team for offense rather than making a super complicated defense. You'll always be beaten by a better offensive player. Like, if you have skills, level 10 skills on defense, and you place a level 10 offensive player, you're going to lose. Most of the time. I mean, not all the time, of course, but it's so much more valuable to have a strong offensive skill set and be able to choose the appropriate team for whatever you see on defense. Let's see. Yeah, rock, paper, scissors. Oh, yeah. You know, I'm talking GAC. I think Farm Boy Luke with his TW Omicron is going to be crazy. He's a very fast stacking character. I mean, who has Farm Boy Luke at Relics? With his Zetas, much less his Omicron. But I think he's going to be he'll be the Embo of the Leia team if you compare Embo to sort of being the de facto 5th unit on Java teams. I think that's going to be Farm Boy Luke. Yeah, he's going to be really good. His kit just works so well. That's going to be a fascinating character. Yeah, nerfing mods. Okay. Oh yeah. So this is one of the themes I wanted to talk about for today. An hour already. My goodness. Um, this is relating to the overall game state that I'm talking about, and offense being generally more valuable than defense, or offensive skills being more valuable than defensive skills. I think defensive strategy is great and very valuable, but it's more important to have offensive skills than defensive skills. Like by defensive skills, I mean making a team just so with exactly the little, mods here, set there. That's great. But for the amount of time it takes to do that versus the amount of time it takes to just play well on offense, I think you get a lot more benefits from offense. I could be wrong, this is just my opinion. All of that to say, I think one of the things that have changed with this game rebalance that I have been following and talking about for some time now is that they've taken a lot of the power away from mods in PvP. Just in PvP. I think in PvE, mods, obviously because Datacrons don't apply to raids or other PvE modes, but mods are way less important in PvP than they ever have been in this game's history. Not that you can ignore mobs, but that what's important about mods are the stats, protection percentage, health percentage, offense percentage, defense percentage, etc., etc. That there's 6E mods, so and sometimes you double or triple the value of those stats. And the turn order for certain speed thresholds, which there's very, very few of, but mostly the turn order of your team. I think that is what's important about mods, not that you have the fastest mods and you're re-rolling like crazy, etc., etc. Because in PvP, it's Datacrons that are the meta. I mean, obviously the team you choose, going back again to this whole offense-defense thing, the team you choose to fight to beat another team is very, very important, and using the appropriate Datacron is also very important. But both of those things are 5-10 times more important than having 10 extra speed on a character, or 10 extra speed on all the characters on that team. Really, mods are not a PvP thing. Like perfect mods are not a PvP thing any longer. It's really having really good Datacrons. And Datacrons are so easy to get now. After the change they made recently, it's insane. It's just going back to how much they're trying, and it's going to take a while to go down to everybody. I mean, as a avid PvPer, GACer, I think you and me and people who are enthusiastic about the PvP parts of this game are seeing it a lot sooner. But hopefully, people who are nonplussed about PvP will realize how easy it is now to compete, given all these dramatic changes they've made. And they haven't really talked about it, which is unfortunate. But hopefully people will pick it up. Anyway, so mods do matter though for PvE. Mods matter very much. So let's see. Yes, broad statements. I think I just talked about what I'm going to highlight here. Let's see what I wrote to myself. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Mod impact in PvP. Again, I don't think this is a controversial statement. Of course, mods are important, but it's way more important to have the appropriate Datacrons and to have good stats on your mods than having 3 or 7 extra speed across your whole team. Is speed important? Of course. I'm not saying speed is not important, but it's better. Trade 3 speed here for 7% extra defense or whatever, because the defense will get multiplied by Datacrons, by leader abilities, by uniques, etc., and speed rarely is. Turn meter gets multiplied a lot, but that is rarely. I mean, to some extent, it's impacted by speed, but not in most ways that turn meter is generated now. speed doesn't have a huge impact on turn meter. But mods, for the best reward for time, you should have mod loadouts for the raid. For the teams that need it. Like if you're just running a Java team, no, you don't need to mod anything. But if you're trying to get, a specific box, or your guild is aiming for a particular box or something, I'll use myself as an example, okay? Not a great example for, I think, I'm sure some people. Actually, no, I know there's a number of people that's a terrible example. Or terrible statement to say that most people listening, there's a lot of people listening who are in the same boat as I am. Listening, watching, whatever. But a lot of people are not getting the 12.5 million box, So I'm not trying to say that you should use me as an example. I'm just saying the process, I think, is very important, and you should expect to mod for raids. So many people say, oh, I hate remodding for raids. Well, yeah, it's annoying, but once you figure out what it is, once you have those raid loadouts set, and personally, I have zero loadouts that are made specifically. Oh wait, let me think. Am I telling the truth? Yes, I have zero loadouts that are made for the Crate Dragon raid. None of them. Zero. The only two loadouts I had for PvE content are for the territory battles mission with Seer and Cal. I actually have specific loadouts for that PvE content. That's it. For the raids, I move mods, like I move my Iden mod to Tusken Warrior and blah blah blah, stuff like that. I move, and I have a spreadsheet where I write down which mods I move where. But I just move those mods because I know the targets I'm aiming for each of the characters. Some of them are very easy. Some of them I only move like 1 or 2 mods for a team, like Mandalorians. 1 or 2 mod loadouts for a team. Other ones, I will move all 5 characters. But still, to run 5 teams and get 12.15 million, I really don't care about the max score. I get 3 teams. I know the 3 teams: Mandalorians, Tuskens, and the CAD lead bounty hunters, or CAD lead hunt cartel team. I can get max score very easily with 1 or 2 retries at most. And the other teams will give me, 2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million, whatever, with 1 or 2 retries. So the whole process takes me like half an hour. Now, yes, it's half an hour or 1 hour a week, you could say. So if I didn't remod, I would do it in probably 30 minutes in a week. So I'm doubling the time, maybe even more than doubling my time. But the rewards are amazing. Like, there's no other part of the game that's even close to giving that many rewards for the amount of time I spend. I mean, I don't spend that much time on GAC, and it doesn't give me close to that amount of rewards. Even if my record in GAC is like almost 70% win rate, 68 points something, in the past year. So why would I not? It's such a little amount of time. It did take me, I would say, the beginning. Not the beginning of the raid, but like once I could follow a guide. I'm not saying I created these strategies myself. Most of the videos are like Skeltrix videos. Once I have a guide I could follow, certain targets that I was trying to meet, and I could understand more of the dynamics of the raid, it probably took me, let's say, an hour per team to learn it, what I needed to do. But I certainly, I don't watch any videos now. I know exactly what I do. They're not complicated. You just have to learn it the first time. Following, press this button, there's 20 buttons you press for each team. And I mean, Tuskens are a little different. They're very easy at higher relics, relic 7 and 8. It's not always pressing exactly the same buttons. There's a randomness, but all the other teams, very little randomness involved. So you just do the same thing. Half an hour every 3 days. Really not that big of a deal. Man, I feel I really went off a tangent there. How does that relate to PvP meta in this game? You need to You don't need to. I think you should spend some time investing in the things that give you the most rewards when the time investment is so little. Especially now Conquest is so easy. I'm done with Conquest halfway through. I have a, yeah, so here I'm going on to the Datacrons. Well, you can tell I wrote this myself because I'm sort of shifting to one point to the next. In Conquest, this is the first Conquest actually where I've spent 0 crystals besides refreshes. I do the 50 and 100 crystal refreshes. Besides that, I've spent 0 crystals on anything. On no re-roll materials, not out of the store, not out of anywhere. 0 crystals on anything except 50 and 100 energy refreshes. And I'm re-rolling level 9 Datacrons. And I don't buy material from the store every time. It's so easy to get Datacrons now, max Datacrons. It's amazing. And that so impacts how GAC plays. Like I have a variety of Datacrons to choose from, and not like, oh, this one's sort of crap. I can reroll like crazy. All of the, anything 6 and below, I can reroll a ton. In one day, I can reroll a new thing. Well, less than one day. It's at a max reroll. I have very few like maybe 3 or 4 Datacrons are 80 cost rerolls. The majority are not. So it's very easy. It's simple, not complicated, doesn't cost anything, just time to get materials and cash to make new Datacrons. And that makes GAC so easy. Fantastic. Yeah, so take that time you're saving and make sure you're making the most out of your raids, because the rewards are amazing. Yeah, one more note about mods. I don't change mods for GAC. I upgrade when I have new mods, but I don't change. I do change for TW. I think here, yeah, 1 to 5 characters, depending on who we're fighting and what we're doing. That's really it. 1 to 5 characters is all I change. Otherwise, all my mods are the same, GAC and TW. But Datacrons I change every single fight. So I want to make sure those are good. So, mods are for turn orders and stats, important, but DCs, Datacrons are for winning. So yeah, focus on your mods to make them fit your team, to make sure your team has a correct turn order, and the best secondaries for their particular setup, depending on how you're using them. But Datacrons are what are going to win you the fight, in my opinion. Yeah, I've talked a lot about this. Yeah, best bang for your buck is the raid system, the raid rewards, making sure remod for that. Don't remod for GAC. Remod when you need to for the raid. It's going to give you a whole bunch more rewards that you can make GAC a lot easier. And Datacrons, it's crazy how much easier it is to get Datacrons now. Such a change. One of the best changes they've made in ages. Yeah. So I didn't really go over exactly what I was intending when I wrote these notes out, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying, where remod for raids, you don't really need to for GAC. Set up your GAC mods, put the correct stats and turn orders, and whatever change when you upgrade or a new team comes out or something like that. But take advantage of the new Datacron acquisition system. It's so good. So, wrapping it up, what's next? Yeah, Datacron acquisition has changed dramatically. This is just insane how good it is. It really makes me wonder what's next. Like, what are they going to introduce as a new system? Do we have Relic 10 coming with Leia? Not Leia, with the new raid, I mean. Are they going to change TW and introduce new rewards, introduce a new PvP system? Something you can play when you want. On-demand PvP is really missing. It was sort of there in Arena, but not really. It was just once a day. So some sort of like skirmish or something PvP mode would be amazing. 3 or 4 months ago, I went over exactly what I think would be fantastic. But yeah, the chance of that actually happening is between 0 and 1%. Um, this is going to be a crazy season. So many changes with Malicos and Leia coming later. People relicking up their characters to those teams. Yeah. We don't know yet. Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about the new GL currency. So they introduced via data mine, you can tell us there already, a new currency called GL Unlock or something like that currency. I suspect it'll be with Leia. I suspect it'll be a new currency you earn instead of the existing one that all the other GLs use, because people hoard their energy and go to unlock their GL on day one. That is terrible for the game. Theoretically, it's terrible for other players. I mean, it's nice if you are not competing, or but like there's no real positive side of that. It doesn't encourage you, that player, whoever's hoarding, to spend their energy. Um, it's sort of more fair if everybody's on the even playing field. I can't say that I have like super strong feelings about it, but I can definitely understand from an economy perspective why they want to encourage, i.e., force people to unlock GLs, which are like a special occasion, all in the same, to make it more rare, I guess. So you don't have it on day one. So I think that's probably going to come with Leia, and it's not going to use just hoarded energy. We'll see. It could be something totally different, and I could be totally off the mark, but I can see why they would do that. But probably you'll either know when you listen to this, or soon after you listen to this, they'll have announced that. Don't spend your relic materials until you see Leia or Malicos in action. I mean, do what you need to unlock them, but I would wait to see. I think Malicos is going to be more impactful than Leia, to be honest. But that's hard to see until we see him in action. And if he has like 1 or 2 hard counters, then hard counters, I don't like that word. If he has 1 or 2 like easy, reliable counters, then maybe not so great. So that there's still a lot to learn. I would not build up either of the teams right away. Wait to see what people do. This is going to be a crazy 5v5 season, so probably you don't have to worry about it until next 5v5 season. Although Malicos is going to be great in 3v3 too. He doesn't have 5v5 specific Omicrons or anything. And also, we don't know what's going on with Leviathan. Like, if Leviathan you have to mirror, then the pilot relics are going to be incredibly valuable. So we'll see what is happening there. Or what else is happening? Like, I mentioned it a little while ago. Okay, so we have the next raid coming. Maybe it's just going to be raids for another year. There's not a new Relic 10 or a new game mode or something like that. Very possible. I mean, GAC is I think it's a bit stale. The whole like squish thing they need to resolve, but it's not in a bad place. Balance-wise, it's good. It's constantly, the meta is changing, so it's always new fights. It's not always the same fight every time. I enjoy it still. I think many people do. The overall engagement is going up a little bit, or not going down any longer. I forget. So it's a good sign. We'll see, but I would love to see a new game mode, honestly. A new PvP game mode. Let's see, besides that, and either way, yeah, I don't think we'll see anything until the end of the year. Probably, maybe October, November, we'll have like a new State of the Galaxy, or I don't know what they call the particular thing, like State of the Galaxy, Road Ahead, whatever, what's coming, what's next. Obviously the new raid later on in a couple of months, but beyond that, it'd be cool to have a new game mode. We'll see what happens. Oh yeah, I did also want to go over Leia. So the last 49 minutes, my goodness, this is going on long. Yeah, so let's talk about Leia briefly. I've read the kit many times. That's a lie. I've read the kit like 3 or 4 times. And I think JNL will counter her the most easily, which sort of makes sense. Like, he doesn't have any other, with Jedi Knight Cal, he's much stronger, but I wouldn't mind JML countering her, but I don't think Java will. I mean, Java may actually. He also has the instant defeat, so I think it needs to be there. Yeah, that's so JML, maybe Java, Lord Vader probably. I'm not sure exactly how the uh, stacking reduction will work from Leia, but I think those three GLs are the only ones that are going to do well, and mostly JML because he has Cal. So you're going to want the Motorola team for health, the tanks for health and speed, but I think most of the units will just be health, health, health. Speed isn't quite as important. Offense on Durgan or Durgan. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember his name. Looking at my phone, I don't think it's Durgan. Drogan. I don't know. I was thinking Durgan. Yeah, some offense on Drogan because he's going to have a huge hit at the beginning once you get him, of course. Otherwise, health fast for her. The Jedi tanks because Jedi tanks deal damage based upon their health. It's very interesting. So her whole team is going to ignore taunt all the time, and you're going to want to attack her and get her down ASAP so she doesn't get to her ult. But when you attack her, everybody else in the team is healthy, gets more healthy, regenerating everything, stacking mastery, blah blah blah. It's a mess of a team, very cleverly built. So I think you want her to be as tanky as possible. And again, that's why I think JML is going to do well, because you can ignore taunt once you get to ult, and there's nothing that's really stopped that team from getting to ult quickly. I mean, theoretically, old Ben with an ability block could, but Revan and Cal are both immune to ability block, so it's not going to stop them. Anyway, I think Cal will do well. Same on Java's team, some people there immune to ability block. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Foreign Boy Luke in Territory Wars. Yeah, she's anti-daze, anti-Night Sister, anti-ability block, anti-stun, anti-turn meter gain, anti-empire, anti-health stack, anti-cooldown reduction. So yeah, true damage. Malicos may do really well also. I think Malicos and JML will probably be the two best Java and Lord Vader potentials. Again, I'm sure this will be much smarter people, and there have been a number of kit breakdowns already. Some Jita Arnold, I'm sure, was there right away by this time. Maybe has Calvin done one? Zareth, has Zareth done one? Anyway, I'm sure by the time you listen or watch this, there'll be a lot available for you to look at and to go into detail. This is not about that. I'm just saying, I think the teams that'll beat it are going to be Malicos and JML, and we'll see what else. In GAC, I'm just talking GAC here. Obviously, it's different in other game modes. So, yeah, going to be a crazy season. Very, very changing very rapidly with the new characters and new teams introduced, especially how they play or interplay with other teams and other units. Be an interesting one. So, good luck with your preparation for 5v5. If you actually listen to this whole thing or watch this whole thing, amazing. Yeah, cheers. Good luck. Talk to you guys in a bit.